Some marry for cultural reasons, but I personally find it stems from a lack of awareness. Well-read people recognize the issue. Most assume that tying the knot with kin is some ancient, forgotten practice. It feels like a relic from an era ignorant of the risks, a primitive habit completely out of place today. Yet, the reality of the 21st century might just blow your mind. Such weddings still take place today. This isn't just happening in remote backwaters. It's occurring right in the glitzy world of the elite. Massive stars and icons have been linked to this. They were legends who commanded global attention and moved millions. Their flashy lives hid family bonds that truly shocked the public. They chose to wed their direct cousins or keep it strictly within the bloodline. Whether driven by heritage, political gain, or hoarding riches, one question remains: was it blissful? I'm revealing the buried secrets of 13 high-profile Black icons who chose to marry their own kin. 13. Henrietta Lacks's life ended early, marked by a tragic family union and a child facing immense struggles. She revolutionized healthcare when her unique cells provided the backbone for groundbreaking medical research across the globe. Her legacy is forever linked to a medical breakthrough that reshaped the entire industry. Hailing from Roanoke, Virginia, she was raised in a modest cabin alongside her grandpa and numerous relatives. Surviving the harsh Jim Crow era meant staying tight-knit, which eventually led to some questionable family crossovers. In 1941, at age 20, she had a low-key ceremony tucked away in Halifax County. Her groom, David Day Lacks, was her own cousin, 5 years her senior. Wed beneath a rustic oak, the family viewed the match as a strategy to secure their property and maintain a vital safety net. Weddings between relatives weren't exactly unheard of in rural Black circles during that period. Keeping it in the family was seen as a way to preserve assets, work, and tribal loyalty. Still, that path led to some very messy outcomes. She actually welcomed her firstborn with David at 18, well before they ever walked down the aisle. Once married, the child was fully integrated into the household, followed by 4 more siblings. Their eldest, Elsie, born in 1939, stood out from her siblings for all the wrong reasons. Young Elsie battled intense cognitive issues, scary fits, and hearing loss, requiring constant around-the-clock supervision. Rumors swirled that their shared blood had triggered bad genetics, sealing the poor girl's grim fate. By age 11, in 1950, she was sent away to Crownsville State, a segregated medical facility. The institution was a nightmare, destitute, dirty, and rumored to be a playground for unethical human testing. Devastated but unable to stop her spouse, Henrietta watched her child vanish into that bleak, indifferent asylum. In 1951, barely a year later, cancer stole Henrietta's life. She died without ever seeing Elsie again. Meanwhile, physicians were busy harvesting her biological material. While medicine leaped forward, her household completely fell apart. David began seeing other women quite publicly, leaving the children to grow up poor and largely ignored. The kids suffered under harsh caretakers, while Elsie remained isolated and forgotten in that strange hospital ward. Elsie passed away at 15 in 1955, totally alone, without a single relative by her side. Her passing led many to believe the family was hexed by their decision to wed within the bloodline. Afterward, her children's lives became a wreck, with many succumbing to substance abuse and early graves. As the HeLa cell secret emerged, the family felt that destiny had truly dealt them a dirty hand. 12. Fatima Mir, the famous activist, entered a family union built on common values and heritage. She was a celebrated South African scholar who threw herself into the front lines against systemic racism. A trusted ally of Nelson Mandela, she became a formidable force in the fight for equality. Hailing from Durban, she belonged to a community where marrying kin was standard practice to keep customs alive. She came of age during a volatile period as the nation spiraled into deep-seated racial segregation. At 22 in 1950, she wed Ismail Mir, her cousin, and a brilliant legal mind for the resistance. They tied the knot quietly at a Durban mosque, surrounded only by their inner circle and kin. Beyond a romantic bond, their union served as a calculated strategic partnership. As resistance surged in the early 1950s, their residence turned into a hidden hub for underground rebels. Illegal papers lay stashed beneath the planks while revolutionary schemes brewed inside that modest suburban home. The couple raised Shaman, Shaz, and Rashid amidst an environment thick with political friction. While their folks preached equality and liberation, Disaster unexpectedly hit in 1980. A sudden fever claimed young Rashid, whose fragile health simply couldn't withstand the illness. Medics linked his lifelong frailty to heredity, leaving Fatima spiraling into a profound, dark melancholy. She remained a tireless activist, championing the cause of racial liberation. Nightly grief haunted her, even as Ismail's legal battles and social crusades kept him constantly occupied elsewhere. Surveillance and endless litigation gradually drove a silent wedge between the grieving couple. Bound by shared goals, they remained united, yet suffered their individual heartaches in isolation. Fatima passed in 2010, leaving a legacy as a legendary figure against racial oppression. Her private journals later exposed deep remorse regarding the Sunni Bohra custom of inter-family nuptials. Such traditions aimed to shield heritage and strengthen kinship against the crushing weight of state tyranny. Yet, her child's passing sparked haunting doubts about the wisdom of wedlock between close relatives. Number 11. Iman, the global runway sensation who broke free from a childhood betrothal to a kinsman. This Somali-American trailblazer redefined beauty before her high-profile life with rock icon David Bowie. Born in Somalia, Iman Muhammad Abdul Majid's upbringing was actually quite forward-thinking for the era. Nevertheless, ancient tribal customs still loomed over her future from a very early age. Her hand was promised to a relative to solidify ties, a decision made long before she could speak. By 1973, her grandmother insisted 18-year-old Iman fulfill her long-standing marital obligation. She wed Hassan, a corporate cousin, in a Mogadishu ceremony steeped in age-old local rituals. Beneath sun-baked acacia branches, the pair traded silver bands in the searing heat. Elders watched as tribal vows echoed over drumbeats. Yet the joy of a true union was absent. This was a business transaction aimed at securing wealth while the nation teetered on chaos. The facade crumbled quickly as Hassan began dictating every single aspect of her existence. Confined indoors and isolated, her aspirations for the fashion world were stifled before they ever took flight. The walls closed in as tribal expectations weighed more heavily on her shoulders every day. Constant demands for a male heir to preserve the lineage turned her household into a pressure cooker. While restricting her, Hassan brazenly pursued other women without a shred of concern for her dignity. After 24 months of lonely captivity, Iman realized their relationship had reached a breaking point. Stripped of autonomy and hidden from friends, the psychological toll of her confinement became unbearable. Risking everything, she escaped her homeland and eventually sought a fresh start in America. Her ex-husband lashed out with threats, branding her a traitor for defying their tribal customs. Looking forward, she blossomed in the United States fashion scene after scouts immediately recognized her rare talent. In just a few years, she ascended to the pinnacle of global supermodel stardom. She rarely discussed that first family-arranged marriage, keeping those traumatic memories well away from the spotlight. Following unions with Spencer Haywood and David Bowie, she proved that early suffering wouldn't define her heart. That forced tribal bond once shackled her youth. Yet, fleeing taught her that staying would have meant vanishing forever into the gloom of tribal obligation. Number 10. Tayyib Saleh, the literary titan bound to a relative by ancestral custom. Acclaimed as a giant of Arabic literature, his masterpiece, Season of Migration to the North, brought global renown. He emerged as Sudan's leading thinker, masterfully exploring the friction between old ways and the new world. By the turn of the 1960s, his influence was rapidly expanding across the Arab creative landscape. Back in Wad Hamid, his kin prioritized one thing: matrimony. Within Sudan's agricultural circles, wedlock between relatives was standard practice. Marrying kin served to safeguard estates, shield wealth, and uphold the ancestral lineage. A dignified wedding unfolded by the Nile's banks in 1961. This intimate gathering relied on ancient rites and the approval of the community patriarchs. He wed his cousin, Amal Hosna Salah, a reserved soul shaped by Sudan's rustic solitude. By local norms, the match was flawless. Yet, for Tayyib Saleh, this union birthed a profound personal contradiction. Salih's later prose explored the friction between heritage and the new age, mirroring his protagonist's battles with age-old conventions. Within the story titled The Wedding of Zayn, he depicts endogamy as a rigid societal law, frequently culminating in heartbreak. He mirrored his own fiction while working abroad in England and Qatar. Caught in a similar trap, extended international assignments slowly severed his domestic ties. Stuck in Wad Hamid, his spouse endured a lonely existence, anticipating his fleeting visits. Friction intensified over time. Every homecoming dinner turned into a clash between desert values and cosmopolitan ideals. Their offspring straddled two realities, the ancestral soil of their birth and the urban philosophies their father carried home. Remaining in the shadows, Sally's partner shunned the limelight entirely, eventually succumbing to deep melancholy. Geographically divided and stifled by custom, their bond ceased to feel authentic. They finally severed their ties through a discreet 1965 divorce. He soon wed Julia MacLean from Scotland, his lifelong companion thereafter. As he ascended to the peak of Arabic letters, critics lauded his literature for its fearless dissection of societal hypocrisies. Upon his death in 2009, he left a colossal legacy as the voice of the culturally displaced. Privately, he inhabited the very friction he wrote about. Next, Omar al-Bashir, an intra-familial union that sparked a rise to dominance, followed by a political downfall. Bashir stands as a towering and polarizing titan in Sudan's contemporary timeline, seizing control via a coup. His long presidency became synonymous with iron-fisted rule and bloody instability. Long before his global infamy, he was merely an obscure military captain. During the late 1960s, as his career dawned, tribal elders brokered a marriage for him. He wed Fatima Khalid, his direct cousin. In a local celebration steeped in ethnic tradition, such kinship bonds were commonplace within the fabric of their community. These unions bolstered clan ties, anchored property rights, and cemented elite status. The unassuming Fatima shunned public life, loyally backing him throughout his modest beginnings as a low-ranking officer. Through the decades, this familial pact anchored his military influence until the 1989 shift. He spearheaded an uprising, toppled the administration, and grabbed the reins of the nation. Instantly, the obscure soldier became the head of state, transforming Fatima's world forever. She relocated to the palace, where every breath was monitored. This opulence offered no comfort. It was a gilded prison under constant surveillance. Bashir's regime soon spiraled into conflict, drawing international fury over the Darfur atrocities. All the while, Fatima retreated into a hushed, media-free existence, yearning for tranquility. She performed her duties while ignoring her husband's numerous affairs. His 2003 marriage to Widad Babakar Omar effectively stripped Fatima of her status. The woman who endured his struggles was suddenly cast into the shadows. Thereafter, she vanished from the public eye, seeking refuge from the political tempests surrounding her spouse. Disgrace struck in 2019 when mass demonstrations finally ended his reign. His seemingly invincible authority evaporated, triggering a wave of criminal inquiries. Fatima was soon implicated in scandals involving hidden wealth and lavish presidential gifts. The media quickly turned on her, labeling her a symbol of regime excess. Once a shadow in the clan, this woman was suddenly thrust into a harsh public spotlight. Drowning in bias and heavy expectations, she spent countless nights in tears. Her blood-tied union, meant to elevate the Bashir name while leaving her hollow, eventually pulled her into a mess of politics and disgrace. Their path forces a second look at elite inbreeding. It might forge bonds. Yet for Bashir and Fatima, those ties became a prison of heavy chores without any real reward. Number 8. Muhammadu Sanusi, the second royal bloodlines and the steep cost of a fallen crown. A titan in Nigeria today, Muhammadu Sanusi II formerly led the nation's central bank. Known for radical financial shifts, he became the 14th emir of Kano, a peak of West African power. His story started deep within Kano's Dabo dynasty. Sanusi grew up alongside Sadia Ado Bayero. She was kin, his own cousin and the child of the legendary Emir Ado Bayero. By the early 1990s, elders blessed their union, leading to a grand 1993 Kano wedding. The palace glowed as vibrant horse parades and traditional rhythms thundered through the ancient streets. Red carpets lined the path to the throne. This match wasn't just about love. It fused two massive pillars of the Dabo house. In Fulani culture, marrying cousins is standard practice. Such unions ensure that wealth, titles, and political reach remain strictly within the family. That day symbolized royal strength. Soon after, Sanusi chased a high-stakes career path, proving himself a brilliant economist. He took the helm of Nigeria's central bank in 2009. His fiscal changes rattled the country while Sadia remained his silent, unshakable pillar. She managed their home and a large family. Yet palace life was far from serene. Following Emir Ado Bayero's death in 2014, Sanusi took the throne, sending the family's status sky high. The palace turned into a political lightning rod, drawing both prestige and dangerous envy. Sanusi's fearless voice against corruption and social rot made him a marked man. By 2020, the state government stripped him of his title and power. The nation was stunned as a sitting king was cast out without a shred of due process. The fallout hit the family hard, leaving Sadia at the mercy of public rumors. Critics slammed her for reaping royal perks while the family reigned, claiming she gave nothing back. Stress fractured the home as their children pulled away amidst the region's brutal political games. Even so, Sadia stood by Sanusi out of genuine devotion, not just duty. Number 7. Hussein Sharifa, a Sudanese visionary, lived confined within an elite, family-arranged marriage. He struggled to balance his artistic soul with the heavy weight of family pride. As a painter, poet, and director, his daring style made him a vanguard of Arab art. He pioneered Sudanese film and art before his traditional 1961 wedding in Khartoum, held for the Sudanese upper crust. The ceremony celebrated the rise of a gifted young creator. His bride was Shama al-Mahdi, a first cousin and daughter of the powerful Imam el-Siddiq. This union locked two dynasties together, a common tactic for preserving Sudanese elite influence. Marrying kin protected the family's name and clout. Initially, their life seemed perfectly poised. Shama was the ideal partner, quietly running their lavish Khartoum estate while raising their children. They shared a double celebration every year since their wedding fell on Shama's birthday. However, Hussein's provocative films began to stir the pot, exposing deep social cracks. His work rubbed the elite the wrong way, bringing political heat through the 1970s and 80s. Censorship forced him abroad for months, leaving his family behind to avoid the regime's reach. This left Shama in a state of constant dread, far from the stability her noble birth promised. While his wife worried, Hussein spiraled into a crisis of identity and purpose. He was caught between his family's rigid expectations and his own wild, creative spirit. In his lowest moments, he felt the safety of his traditional marriage had become a golden shackle. Through every trial, the family stood firm. The children were caught between two worlds, a father who bucked every trend for his art, and a mother bound to the clan's ancient code. This tug-of-war lasted until Hussein Sharif passed away in 2005, leaving behind a massive cultural imprint on Sudan. Shamba kept mostly to herself, though she eventually confessed that her life behind closed doors felt like being trapped in a breathless glass box. On the surface, it was a flawless display of family dignity, but underneath, it brewed a silent tension that weighed on them both for years. Coming in at number 6 is Omo Diabate, the Guinean powerhouse whose marriage to a relative bound two legendary musical destinies into one, a true icon of Guinea. Omo redefined high-tech pop with her fierce, independent energy and unmistakable feminist edge. Hailing from a prestigious griot lineage, everyone knew from the start she was the chosen successor to West Africa's rhythmic soul. Growing up in Kankan, her childhood was soundtracked by the Kora and Balafon. Her father, the great Namakoro, was a fierce guardian of their griot roots. In her circles, music wasn't a career, it was a bloodline. It was a sacred inheritance that never left the family tree. To keep that legacy pure, an arranged marriage was finalized in 1983. Just as tradition demanded, she wed her cousin, Kimo Kuyate, a brilliant composer and educator, in a grand conakry ceremony steeped in ancient rituals. For their kin, this union was a vault for the clan's musical secrets. Once married, the pair threw themselves entirely into their craft. Together, they launched Les Ambassadeurs de la Musique Diabaté. With Kimo masterminding the compositions and intricate arrangements, Omu commanded the stage, her voice radiating like a literal force of nature. Early on, they were the definition of a power couple, raising two children while touring Guinea. Friends often remarked that their shared melodies were the third child holding them together. By 1987, she headed for Paris to go global. Her breakout album, Lansane, hit the scene like a tidal wave. Hits like Femme d'Afrique showcased her grit, using her platform to scream for female empowerment and call out systemic inequality. As Umu's fame exploded worldwide, Kimo found himself fading further into the background. He spent his days perfecting her harmonies and polishing every beat. Yet the world only had eyes for the woman out front. A rift slowly opened. Kimo was crushed by the weight of tradition, bound by duty to serve the family brand at any cost. His own dreams were suffocated by his wife's massive shadow, leading to a decade-long silence that grew between them. It was a strange contrast, Umo singing of liberation, while her cousin husband was chained to a supporting role he never wanted. They kept up appearances, touring and recording for years. But the fractures in their foundation were becoming impossible to hide, refusing to let him step out on his own. Umo used the weight of tradition to keep him firmly in his place. When Kimo passed away in 2017, he left with a heavy heart, leaving Umo haunted by a mountain of regret. She later confessed her own selfishness. Their union was like a balafon stuck on a loop, beautiful, yet repetitive and unchanging. The music they made was hauntingly deep, but for those within it, it felt like a gorgeous cage with no way out. Moving to number 5, Sadiq al-Mahdi. This Sudanese leader built his throne on family alliances, only to watch his world shatter while in exile. A titan of Sudanese politics, al-Mahdi spearheaded the Umma party and twice held the highest office in the land as prime minister. For over 40 years, he stood as a towering figure in the nation's political landscape. Back in the early 60s, as Sadiq began his climb to power, his cousin Sarah al-Fadil was making her own mark. Fresh from her studies in America, she returned as a brilliant, iron-willed intellectual who commanded respect wherever she went. Their 1962 wedding was low-key, but the implications were huge. This was a strategic merger of two political powerhouses. Sarah wasn't content being a trophy wife. She surged to the forefront of the Umma party, carving out her own space. She was the engine behind his campaigns and his most trusted advisor, all while their family expanded alongside his rising influence. With 2 sons and 3 daughters, they were the ultimate portrait of a Sudanese dynasty at its peak. Peace was fleeting in Sudan. By 1966, Sadiq had clinched the premiership for the very first time. The high was short-lived. A year of crushing pressure later, his government buckled under the weight of a national crisis. Fast forward 20 years to 1986, he reclaimed power. But the political climate had turned even more volatile. The nation was a powder keg of warring factions until the 1989 coup finally blew his administration apart. Sadiq was forced to vanish into the shadows, fleeing into a lonely life of exile abroad. Back home, Sarah and the children were essentially prisoners under state watch. It was then that Sadiq took a second wife while away. He wed another relative, Hafia Mamoun Sharif, to Sarah, who had bled for his career. This felt like the ultimate backstab. Yet, the rigid structures of tradition gave her no choice but to swallow the bitter pill of a shared husband. Sarah channeled her fury into her work, seizing her own power within the party and remaining a force until her passing in 2008. Turning away, she shunned him finally. Their kids matured amid political strife and tangled kinships. Some mimicked their parents' politics, yet everyone maintained a sharp distance from their father. Following their mother's pain, Sadiq al-Mahdi passed in 2020, a legendary Sudanese icon, but privately, brutal power plays, multiple wives, and sudden whims destroyed the household. 4. Kandia Kouyaté, the griot star whose family marriage aimed to shield their musical genes. As a top Malian voice, Kandia holds the Ngara title, the peak of musical mastery. Her commanding, resonant vocals once electrified massive crowds throughout West Africa. Born into Kita's griot lineage, Kandia knew that for her people, music isn't just work, it's blood heritage. Secrets of the Kora, Belafin, and storytelling stay locked within the clan. Moving to Bamako for her career around the late 70s or early 80s, she wed Mori Kouyaté, a cousin and virtuoso guitarist who was famous among his peers. Traditional rites followed. Elders gathered while the Kora's strings hummed softly in the background. Ancestral songs confirmed their bond. This union didn't just link people, it shielded ancient artistry. They teamed up on stage immediately, Kandia's haunting voice booming like thunder over the hills. Modibo backed her, electric guitar in hand, crafting an entirely fresh sonic landscape. He pioneered electric strings in sumu groups, a move that felt quite revolutionary then. Pedals deepened the sound, elevating Kandia's performance until her 1999 album, Kita Kan. That record honored her roots, marking a career peak as their family continued growing. Their kids inherited the craft. Gimba Kouyaté, a gifted guitarist, eventually joined his mother's act. Then disaster struck in 2004. Kandia suffered a massive, unexpected stroke. Her once stunning voice vanished instantly. Many experts feared she would never perform again. Hard months followed. Candia spent weeks hospitalized before returning to Bamako to recover. Meanwhile, Modibo performed alone to protect the clan's honor under heavy personal strain. Caught between a sick wife and relentless tradition, he struggled while the kids felt it, talented yet burdened by legacy. They persevered until Candia's stage return a decade later. By 2015, her Renaissance album debuted with help from Ibrahim Silla. Her tone had softened, less fierce, but carrying the raw soul of a storm survivor. 3. Princess Nandi Zulu. A family union plagued by infidelity and ruined royal standing. As King Goodwill Zwelithini's daughter, Nandi belongs to South Africa's most powerful royal line. Raised in the Zulu heartland, her life revolved around protocol and strict ancestral rules. November 2002 saw a grand 13-day gala spanning from KwaZulu-Natal to Eastern Cape. Thousands watched as drums throbbed and Zulu Xhosa dancers performed throughout the nights. Nandi wed Chief Mbuso Mandela, Nelson's great-grandson and her own cousin on her mother's side. The political gravity of this union stunned the entire nation. Two massive black lineages were ritually reconnected through this high-profile royal wedding. Pundits saw a strategic pact between the Zulu and Thembu houses, pillars of South African history. Rebuilding these ties helped anchor social structures in a rapidly evolving modern era. Ancient ceremonies were completed, yet trouble was quietly brewing beneath the grand surface. Within 2 years, the facade cracked as bitter fights began to poison their marriage. Palace tension rose as pre-wedding secrets became too heavy to hide any longer. He had maintained a secret, long-term relationship with a woman named Sifakazi Tandani. She'd borne his child in 2000. But the royals suppressed it for the wedding. Once leaked, the media pounced. Sifakazi's story broke, spreading the scandal nationwide. Nandi was torn between royal duty and the agony of a marriage built on deception. They fought relentlessly during that dark time, while the palace put on a brave face. Their private life was a total disaster. Eventually, Nandi walked away, ignoring her in-laws' massive outcry. Retreating to her childhood home, she ditched the public eye for years to slowly stitch her broken spirit back together. Meanwhile, Mundo just moved on with his long-term mistress and their kids born out of wedlock. What started as a golden symbol of royal harmony ended up as a tragic cautionary tale for the history books. Nandi's ordeal pulled back the curtain on the ugly reality of royal matchmaking, where politics and lineage always come before personal love. Sometimes, those prestigious family bonds turn into heavy chains that demand your soul as the price of admission. Number 2. Meet Sekou Diabate. This Ghanaian guitar hero entered a family-tied marriage that ended up burying another massive talent in the dark. Sekou was the face of West African music, fronting Bembia jazz and earning his status as a true guitar god in Guinea. For decades, his lightning-fast solos absolutely electrified audiences everywhere he played. Among the griots, the keepers of African history, music is more than just a job. It is literally woven into their DNA. The deepest secrets of the craft, from ancient melodies to lore, stay locked within the family circle for generations. Against this backdrop, a massive traditional wedding kicked off in Conakry sometime between the late 70s and early 80s. The star was Sekou himself, while the bride, Dianka, was actually a talented relative from his own prestigious family tree. She had a voice like gold. As the elders watched, the haunting sounds of the kora filled the air with tradition, singing to the ancestors to seal the deal. The couple soon hit the road as a powerhouse musical duo. Sekou kept shredding with Bembea jazz, his guitar work absolutely catching fire under the stage lights. With Janka's powerhouse vocals backing him up, their sound took over Guinea and started booming across the whole continent. However, the limelight had a favorite. Sekou went viral, with the media dubbing him the man with the diamond hands. While his solos drove fans wild throughout the 80s and 90s, Janka was slowly being sidelined by the industry. People just saw her as the guitar hero's wife, and old-school traditions made it nearly impossible for her to step out. She was juggling 4 kids on the road, bouncing between Conakry and Paris as the tour dates never stopped coming. Her personal dreams just kind of drifted away until 1997, when they finally shared top billing on an album. It was one of the few times she actually got equal credit on a major project alongside her famous husband. But behind the scenes, things were getting shaky as Sekou stayed booked worldwide, 24/7. Janka was stuck playing single-parent and family manager, leading to some serious blow-ups as the 2000s rolled in. She thought about quitting many times, but she stayed for the children and to keep the Diabate family reputation intact. When Sekou passed away in 2017, Janka retreated into a quiet life to focus on her family. Folklore says their union saved the family legacy, but it really just acted as a leash that kept a brilliant artist from ever truly flying. First up, Ahmed Mustafa. He was a giant of Sudanese culture who carried a heavy weight of family sorrow and strict traditional expectations his whole life. After Sudan became independent, his music basically became the heartbeat of the nation, turning him into a massive household name. Way back in July 1935, a huge wedding bash went down right on the banks of the Nile. The groom was Ahmed, and his bride was Fadia, who happened to be his own cousin. This was his second time marrying a relative. His first wife, another cousin, tragically passed away just months after their wedding day. Back then, high society families in Sudan did this kind of thing all the time. The big players wanted to keep the money and power in the family, using marriage like glue for the dynasty. Soon after, Ahmed's career went nuclear, and by the 50s and 60s, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing his voice. By 1956, his tunes were basically the official soundtrack for a newly independent and proud Sudanese nation. He was selling out venues from the capital to the furthest reaches of the country, with screaming fans. Fadia, though, lived a totally different reality, having already survived one family-arranged marriage before this one. Following a divorce, she landed in Ahmed's massive family home, living as the second wife in a crowded house. As Ahmed spent all his time in the spotlight, Fadia was a ghost, stuck at home raising kids and doing chores. Soon, the local rumor mill in Khartoum started churning. People whispered about these forced family unions, cruelly joking that Fadia was basically a widow while her husband was still alive. Folklore says that's the steep price for marrying your own kin. Things got heavy at home, forcing the kids to navigate two jarringly different realities. They were caught between their father's brilliant stardom and a crushing household misery, where every choice was shackled by rigid family legacies. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, Ahmad al-Mustafa remained the undisputed titan of the Sudanese music scene. Behind closed doors, however, he was a total stranger, a phantom who barely acknowledged his own flesh and blood during his fleeting monthly visits. By 1999, the music died with him, leaving Sudan in mourning. Yet Fadia drifted through her silent days as though his departure changed nothing. That wraps up 13 shocking accounts of famous black stars marrying within the family, leaving audiences absolutely floored. Beyond the glowing spotlight and thunderous ovations, there are murky, unexpected depths that rarely see the light. These accounts prove that their reality was a far cry from the flawless image presented to the public. Did this countdown catch you off guard? Share your reactions in the comments right now. Which of these pairings struck you as the most heartbreaking? Make sure to voice your opinion and hit that subscribe button before you go, to catch our upcoming reveals on the private lives of icons. Stay tuned as we dig deeper into these hidden mysteries.